All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This channel is for educational purposes, and this is a segment that is called Your Blind Side, and this is for the Patriot movement out there. Um, just giving you a few, uh, nudges from Guardian Angel that about what you might not be paying attention to, what might be lurking in your blind spots, um, what right now doesn't seem like a big deal, but maybe a little bit down the road, it might become a big deal. And, you know, that's kind of what I see with this movement is that, we're going to win, beat these globalists, uh, but that doesn't mean that everything is going to work out because things happen. When you are kind of put in power or in responsibility when you weren't in power before, uh, you know, but they say power corrupts. And, you know, it also kind of gives you a license. It allows you to kind of feel your oats that you are, um, you can do anything, and you become a little bit more intolerant. And um, this is the kind of thing that created the witch trials and other excesses of um, the Christian church throughout the last 2,000 years, the Crusades and the Inquisition and Age of Exploration, missionaryism, all of this stuff uh, I see as being huge red flags. Um, but the main thing for Christianity, um, is just that it isn't true. It was a psychological operation. It was originally, the New Testament was originally written by the Romans. And this can be demonstrated and proven. Get yourself a copy of Josephus, his 7-volume history, War of the Jews, and just track it with your Gospels it on hand and compare the two. And you'll see that they were written by the same people at the same time for the same reason. We know that Josephus was issued under the orders of the Flavian Caesars, Titus in particular, Emperor Titus in the late 70s AD. And the story of the Gospels was written at the same time and backdated by 40 or 50 years to make it seem like it took place in an earlier era. Um, but if you read it closely, you can see that they are talking about a lot of the events that did happen during that war, 66 to 73 AD, the War of the Jews that Josephus talks about. Anyway, that's not really exactly what I'm getting at here. I mean, I do believe that I you know the Roman when the Romans wrote the New Testament, they wrote it as a limited hangout. So there is a lot of valuable, righteous, um, foundational stuff that's in there that you can base a religion upon. They had to make it look like a religion, but it was really a psychological operation. So I'm not uh, uh, terribly opposed to Christian values. I find some of them to be admirable. And I find that most Christians are very good people. um, right now, because they're not really in power. Um, but uh, the main thing that I see moving forward is just kind of, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like there's a kind of a know nothingism in Christianity. Now, I could be wrong about this. If you tell me uh, that you know you're an exception to this, or that you know that this isn't true, well, then you can tell me. But I was watching a podcast with the um call open lines with Dave Newstreisen, and this was a couple months ago, and he got a rant that said, such and such a book proves that the Bible was written by God, and the way that I take this is that your average Christian listens to that and hears that and, oh, this guy actually proves that the Bible was written by God. And so, therefore, the Bible was written by God. But the person never did the research. The person never got the book and looked at it, didn't read even a page of it, or even didn't even bother to retrieve the book, but just took the word from the rant that, oh, there's a book out there that says um, that the Bible was written by God. And this guy proves it. But I don't need to see the proof because I already know that the Bible was written by God. So I'm just going to kind of assume that this person successfully proved this because I already feel like it's the truth myself. And so the Christians don't do the research, they don't read the book, and they don't know what it says, but they pretty much assume that it is right. Me, being not a Christian, being anti Christianity, pro Christian, anti Christianity, because I don't believe it's true, because I would believe that it's written by the Romans. I'm probably the only person that heard that podcast that actually went out and got the book and read it. Well, I haven't read it. I've only read the first 375 pages. I'm not finished with it yet, but I've read most of it so far, and it doesn't prove that God wrote the New Testament, or the Bible in general. What it shows is that there are codes within the Bible that are kind of hard to explain. A lot of coincidences, a lot of patterns that lurk beneath the surface of the book that show that there's something going on. But, if you subscribe to Occam's razor, um, the author in the book basically says, there's no other way. I believe that's a quote that he uses a couple times in the book. There's no other way that all these patterns could exist unless the book was written by God. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, there is another way. The other way is just to think that the book was written by the Romans. If the Romans could have done this, the Romans had access to dozens, if not hundreds, of intellectuals, slave scribes. They had the wherewithal and the ability and the know-how. They were masters of rhetoric and codes and enigmas. They had the wherewithal to do this. So to think that um, there's no other way that it could have happened is kind of ignoring or just not knowing about this Roman origins hypothesis and just kind of eliminating that. But so the book does not prove that God wrote the Bible, or um, which I think is just an absurd proposition to start with. But it doesn't prove that. But most people who heard that thinks that it does because they haven't done the research. And that's what I see as really one of the main Achilles heels of this movement is that uh, y'all virtue signal about Christianity all over the place. Whenever Christianity or the Bible or Jesus, whenever any of that comes up, you automatically kind of go into a trance that turns off your rational faculties and your critical faculties, and you just become this person who's willing to give away your, sovereignty for this faith that you don't deserve to have because you haven't done the research. Is you've just um, inherited this belief system and you haven't checked it. You haven't checked it because you have friends and family that really believe it, and you don't really want to offend them. You've already offended them enough, probably. Um, and so, we kind of have this albatross in this movement of this Christianity thing that the people that literally are the most vociferous about it and the most zealous about it are the ones who have actually know the least about it. And that it just is kind of walking through this movement as it's masquerading as being something that is legitimate, but it hasn't been given even an ounce of scrutiny yet. And we're 10 years in on this minimum. And nobody has really examined this. And those who have come up with like little band-aids that they want to put on it. Oh yeah, well, this book should be in there, or they should have put all these other books in there. That's not the point. The point is that all of them, regardless of whether it's the canonical Bible or whether it's the apocryphal versions, or whether it's the church fathers or whether it's the Roman Catholic Church or the popes, they're all from the Roman royal family. It's all the same. It's all a psyop. So, you can't just put little band-aids on it. It's a complete systemic problem. But we're going nowhere if we don't examine this. So, you don't have to believe what I say. Just follow up. That's what I thought this movement was about, is about following up on, research. But you follow up about things that are related to like today, but you do not follow up on like going way back in the past. And I can understand it because sometimes it's intimidating. You got all this language barriers and, research barriers, time it's hard to understand the ancient world. You have to study the context, and that's another thing about the Bible is the way that you understand it is that you got to read a bunch of books that aren't the Bible first. You have to read a bunch of you can read the Bible first, but you have to read a bunch of books that aren't the Bible that will give you the context about what this is all about, and then read the Bible again, and then you can start to kind of piece it together. But if you just take it kind of in a vacuum, um, you're not really gonna get the subtext, what's actually being talked about. You'll kind of, and that's kind of what most Christians do is they have their pet verses. You have 200 verses that you love to cite in various different occasions, but you haven't looked at the whole thing and figured out what it says kind of as a whole, as a gestalt. Okay, so more on that probably with almost every broadcast because I see that as being really a crucial thing that probably is somewhat irrelevant at this point because it appears as if we're still in this war and in this fight against the globalists, and obviously I'm going to choose the Christians over the Satanists any day. But you know, once the Satanists are you know, taken out, then you know, we've got to figure that out. So, you know, these videos might not seem too relevant to most people at this time, but they will be. And so I'm going to keep talking about it. All right. Thanks for tuning in today. Like, share, subscribe, comment, contribute, and remember to watch your blind side.